Hi everyone, I'm Kanav and I'm going to talk about the legal situation for LGBTQ plus people in India.
Hello, my name is Oliver and I am a trans guy who is currently traveling through India. After 1 week of traveling through Agra and Jaipur, enjoying the beautiful buildings and hectic roads, I've made it to Delhi, where a bunch of cool queer people have agreed to share their stories with me and my camera.
My name is Kanav and I work as a communications manager in a legal think tank in India. I hold a master's degree in development studies and I'm also very active with the LGBTQ movement here in India. I identify as gay. My pronouns are he, him.
Kanav has chosen to speak about a subject that is really close to his heart, the legal situation for LGBTQIA plus people in India.
So the legal situation for gay people in India is that in 2018, the Supreme Court of India decriminalized private, consensual, same-sex activity between adults. This was a landmark case in 2018 because a couple of years before 2018, the Supreme Court had actually upheld a homosexuality ban. So the Supreme Court basically reversed its own judgment. So in 2018, that law was passed, the judgment was passed rather by the Supreme Court, and that decriminalized same-sex conduct. We also have a Mental Health Care Act in our country, which prohibits psychologists and psychiatrists from pathologizing gay people. In other words, sexual orientation is not considered to be a mental disorder. This was also a statement that the Indian Psychiatric Association released in 2018. That is also quite significant, but we do not have any anti-discrimination law at the national level that would prohibit employment discrimination against gay people. Of course, marriage equality is not yet legal in India, and this issue is being heard by the Supreme Court as we speak. Same-sex adoptions are not yet recognized in India. In India, adoption is regulated by government agency, and that government agency stipulates that only heterosexual couples have the right to adopt. If a gay person would like to adopt a child, they can only adopt a child as a single person. So there are restrictions on adoption laws as well. So basically, we have a ways to go. I think the important thing is that homosexuality is not considered to be a mental illness and that it is not criminalized. But beyond that, there is a scope for increasing rights in various other avenues.
But India has a long history of being accepting towards people of various sexualities and gender identities. That was until the British colonizers arrived.
When the British colonized India and many other parts of the world, they introduced their own legal systems. And their legal systems were based on Victorian morality. So the idea of gender being a binary, the idea of homosexuality being obscene, the idea of adultery being a criminal offense. All of these ideas came to India from the British when they colonized us, and it was inputted into our penal code, the penal code being the law, the criminal law of the land at that time. So there was one section in particular called section 377, which criminalized same-sex conduct, private consensual same-sex conduct between men, and it likened it to bestiality, which is sex between a man and an animal. Interestingly, when the British colonized India, they also colonized other countries, and the same section was inputted in different colonies. So for example, Singapore also has a section 377. India has a section 377. I believe Bangladesh also has one. So the number is also the same in all these colonies. So that was what the British gave India. Thereafter, when the British left, it was up to India to reform our legal systems, but we didn't really touch that. We didn't really reform it. I think what happened over time was because the West started modernizing and repealing its own homosexuality laws, in India we retained it because I think for some reason people thought that modernizing these laws was a way of approving or siding with the West. So for some weird and strange reason, Indians actually felt that these anti-gay laws were a part of Indian culture and pro-gay laws would be akin to supporting Western ideology. So when we talk about colonial reform, one aspect of colonial reform has always been repealing section 377 with anti-gay law.
And the day of our filming, March 13th, was a very important day for gay people in India.
So today is the day that the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments on the legality of same-sex marriage. This is an important day because for the past 2 to 3 years, various petitions have been filed across high courts across the country on the issue of legalizing same-sex marriage. And these petitions have been filed by various people from the gay community. What has happened is that most of the high courts have asked the government to respond. Government responded in the negative. The High Courts then asked the petitioners to give another date for the hearing, for the next hearing. And so the case has just been dragged on and dragged on and dragged on in the lower courts for 2 years. What the Supreme Court has now done is that it has collected all the petitions in the lower courts, transferred it to itself, and it has decided that it's going to just hear all these cases together because they all are similar, and it's going to hear the arguments now. So yesterday night, the government filed its response, and the government of India as it stands today does not support same-sex marriage because it would like to protect, I'm using it in quotations, protect the institution of family, and so it would not want to recognize same-sex marriages legally. And the Supreme Court is now going to hear the other side, the case made by the other side, the petitioners. A verdict will be handed down soon, in the coming weeks, months, who knows. And so today is an important day because we will finally get to see what the court thinks. We know what the government thinks, we know what the petitioners want to say, but we will now see what the judges think. And that will give us a sense of where we are headed. So that's why today is important.
And if the Supreme Court says yes, the government will have no say. Same-sex marriages will be legalized.
So if we do eventually get that yes in a judgment, then that will be a big step for the queer LGBTQ community, I would say for all people, because it's important to note that in its response, the central government stated that it believed that the institution of marriage would only serve a biological male and a biological woman. So that not only affects gay people, but also transgender people. Because a trans man and a trans woman, or a trans man and a trans man, or a cis woman and a trans man, or whatever, they are also affected by this. So this isn't just about gay rights, it's also about transgender rights. So I think what the courts should do is recognize that this isn't just about gay people, it's about other people in the community. And if we do get a yes, I hope it includes the others also. And if it does, then I think that will be really monumental, because it'll be the first time in our country's history that we've recognized marriages that cross gender lines and sexuality lines.
Let's leave the gay community a little bit and look at the legal situation for transgender people in India.
I think the other issue that's super important is that for transgender people, there's so much of stigma and discrimination that they face, even though we have a Transgender Protection Act that grants certain legal protections to transgender people and recognizes their rights. In our country, we do recognize the third gender as a valid gender. This progress has been made. It's still so hard for people who are transgender to simply walk on the road without being harassed or discriminated against. And the other issue is with changing your gender identity. The ability for a person who's transgender to self-identify is still not a very easy process. And what's also hard is that if you have made that decision of transitioning, and if you have transitioned, changing all your documents which have your old gender to your new gender is also a very harrowing task. So the administrative hurdles are really intense. This is also something that is still very taboo, and then the social acceptance within families is still very, very, very low. So I think less legally, more social acceptance is needed, I think, for trans people and gender non-conforming people, and we are still not there yet.
There are many things that have to change when it comes to lawmaking in order for the queer community to have their basic human rights fulfilled.
I think in the future, I would like to see not just same-sex marriage or queer marriages being recognized, but also seeing other aspects of the law being reformed. For example, in India currently, marital rape is not considered to be a form of rape even for heterosexual women. Believe it or not, but in our country, we have an exception in our rape laws that allows for a husband to rape his wife, and the law would not see that as a form of rape. It's called the MRE, marital rape exception. So if a woman is married to a husband and lives with a husband, and if her husband rapes her, she can file a domestic violence claim against her husband. She can file a cruelty case against her husband, but not a rape case. These are some issues in the law that need to be changed. So I hope that along with legalizing same-sex marriage or queer marriages, there are changes in our rape laws, because we have to understand that rapes happen between queer couples also. It is a harsh reality that we have to accept. I want to see adoption laws changing. The government website needs to allow for same-sex couples to also be able to adopt children, because in India, adoption rates are very, very low as compared to other countries. It's still very taboo in our country to adopt kids as opposed to having your own children. So even though we have such low rates of adoption, to restrict a community from adopting is sad. Another issue that I've that recently came to notice was that in India, people who are gay are not legally allowed to donate blood. So there is a ban on homosexual people, transgender people and sex workers from donating blood, which I find really preposterous, because even though gay people have a higher rate of HIV transmission, they are not the only sexually active people. You have heterosexual people who are also very sexually active, who do engage in risky sexual behavior, cause unplanned pregnancies to women, but for some reason they are not singled out. This is also a form of homophobic legislation that needs to be changed. So that's with blood donation. So I think there are all of these issues, and as far as the law is concerned, as I said, the prohibition on donating blood, marriage restrictions, adoption restrictions, inheritance laws, all of them need to change. And I think society also needs to change, because right now there's very little awareness.
Let's end the video by listening to Kanav's positive stories of how things are actually changing for the better.
Something that's been really amazing has been that before the 2018 law, we used to have a lot of gay parties. We still had gay parties, but they were still kind of shrouded in a little bit of secrecy. But I think after the judgment, the 2018 judgment that decriminalized homosexuality, gay parties have exploded. And now you have parties every day of the week almost. These parties are now like become the news and talk of the town. Drag is, I think, becoming a little bit more mainstream in the nightclub scene. More and more straight people are kind of becoming aware about this. So for example, I recently came out to some folks in my gym, and they were really cool about it. So I think people are now like a little bit more aware about queer issues, and the gym is not really the most, I wouldn't say it's the safest place, because there's like a lot of toxic masculinity and like a lot of, that very, very patriarchal and conservative people in the gym who are not really exposed to ideas about the LGBT community. But I came out to a trainer and I just chilled, like in a very fun way, told him that, oh, I had a great time with a guy, and he was like, oh, that's nice, I had it with a girl, and then we started talking about it. So I think people are becoming a bit more open. I've noticed in Pride parades, a lot more people have started coming. So this year, Delhi had, I believe it had like 13,000 people. And as far as the media is concerned, I've noticed that Bollywood and non-Bollywood actors have started to play queer roles. It's becoming more and more, slightly more common. So it's fun to watch that. Instagram is another place where you see, like, now you see same-sex couples and gay people posting memes and reels and stuff like that on social media. So it's fun. Like, the content has increased. The entertainment has increased.
If you enjoyed watching that video, please like, comment, subscribe and share the video. I really appreciate you showing your love in that way. If you also want to support the channel financially, that's possible via Patreon, but really no pressure. See you next time.